Go early. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is just another Tuesday morning. Doing AA. Let's see. What a day, what a day. So last night the moon was out, big and full and beautiful. I got video of that. Was uploading. But yeah. Anyway, I'm Sandra and I'm an alcoholic. Please be mindful in the comments and the chat. If you don't feel comfortable being in the chat, I completely understand because not everybody is ready for that. However, I don't care who knows that I'm a recovering alcoholic because me saying it helps me to stay sober and helps me to help others. Exactly why I'm doing these meetings. It's a free gift that you get. And all the friends and people that become very, very close friends to you from these meetings. Um, I find it's been very much worth it. So, what time is it? It's just now 11. Don't harass people in the comments. They might not be here because they're the recovering alcoholic or the alcoholic who still suffers. They might be here to support my channel, to learn ways to help a family member or a friend to get sober and stay sober. It's just information that has helped me in my journey and can help you as well. Most of our stories are similar, but yeah, anyways. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So in case if you want to know what the steps are, they are in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book right in the front. That's where I get mine. But yeah. So 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Ryder, why are you chewing your foot? Ryder, stop. I'm going to get it. If you get his paws, he starts playing. Ryder, stop. Thank you. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. No. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Ryder, you need to go lay down. I always put in the description what I'm reading, except for on Facebook, because every time I do it, it messes up. So I've got the 4th edition of the big book. No! Dog's trying to get over here on my lap. And we are on page 338, because I'm an alcoholic. Because I'm an alcoholic, this drinker finally found the answer to her nagging question, why? I suppose I always wondered who I was as a child, isolated in the country. I made up stories, inventing myself along with imaginary companions to play with. Later, when we moved to a large city and I was surrounded by kids, I felt separate, like an outcast. And although I learned to go along with the cultural norm as I grew up, still underneath I felt different. Alcohol helped me, at least I thought it helped, until I saw the oppressive 30-year shadow it cast on my life. I discovered it in college, and although at first I didn't drink often, didn't have the opportunity whenever I started, I drank as long as there was any alcohol around. It was a reflex. I don't remember liking the taste, but I liked that it seemed to bring me to life and get me through a date or a party, able to talk. It moved me outside of the hole I felt in myself and lowered the wall I created between me and any person or situation that made me uncomfortable. For 10 years, through college and graduate school, interspread, interspersed with jobs. I drank periodically, so it was easy enough to think that I was a social drinker. Looking back, I see that alcohol helped me construct an image of myself as a sophisticated metropolitan woman, diminishing my feelings of being backward. I studied vintage wines and selected them with care to accompany the gourmet I, dishes I learned to make. I read about the correct drinks for various occasions. I learned to put just the tiniest whiff of dry Vermouth into my martinis. Meanwhile, my tolerance for alcohol grew, so that while at first I got sick and passed out, as time went on, I could hold larger quantities without any visible effects until the next morning's hangover. Behind the facade, my real life seemed just out of reach. I wanted to consider myself grown up, but inside I felt small and helpless, hardly there at all. I would look at my friends, delightful, interesting, good people, and try to define myself through them. If they saw something in me that made them want to be with me, I must have something to offer. But their love for me was not a substitute for loving myself. It didn't fill the emptiness. So I continued spinning fantasies, and now alcohol fueled my dreams. I would make great discoveries, win the Nobel Prize in medicine and in life or in literature as well. Always the dream was somewhere else, further off, and I took a series of geographical tours in search of myself. I was offered a job in Paris and jumped at the chance. I packed my trunk, left my apartment to my boyfriend, and sailed off, thinking that at last I would find my real home, real life. I began to drink daily and rationalized that in a co- France, of course, you have to have wine with meals. And after that dinner, after the wine, then there were liqueurs. My journals and letters bear witness in the deter- deterioration of my handwriting as the evening wore on. Drinking as I write, I was there too that I first became dependent on alcohol. After work, on the way to the Alliance franchise for classes, I'd stop at a bistro for a glass of cognac to give Well, where am I? Okay. I stop at a bistro for a glass of cognac to give me courage to get me there. My need greater than the embarrassment of being a woman drinking alone in the 50s. One vacation, I went to visit friends in Scotland. Traveling vacation, I went to visit friends in Scotland, traveling slowly through the English and Welsh countryside. The bottles of cognac and Benedictine I'd brought as gifts for them I drank in little hotel rooms miles before I got there, as long as it lasted. I could stay out of the pubs. Europe hadn't proved to be the change that would repair my life, and I started west again. It was in Cambridge that I pronounced my first resolution about cutting down. New Year's resolution. I recycled for a dozen years while my drinking and my life kept getting worse. Alcohol had enslaved me. I was in bondage to it. Although I kept assuring myself that drinking was a pleasure and a choice. Blackouts began, vacant places in my life when hours would disappear, lost to memory. The first time was after I'd given a dinner party. The next morning, I woke up without remembering that I'd told my guests good night and gone to bed myself. I searched the apartment for clues. The table was cluttered with dessert dishes and coffee cups. Bottles were empty and the glasses too. It was my custom to polish off any drinks that were left. My first memory was sometime during dinner. Did we ever finish? But there were the plates. I was terrified that I'd done something horrendous until my friends called to tell me they'd enjoyed the evening. One time we sailed from Guadalupe, I think is what it is, to a little island for a picnic. Swam to shore from the ship. After lunch and quantities of wine, I was with a French ski instructor talking to a troop of small boys on their way home from school, trying to explain to those tropical islanders what snow is like. I remember them giggling. The next thing I knew, I was back at the camp, walking to the dining room. Apparently, after swimming back to the ship, sailing to the port, then taking a rickety bus around the island or across the island. I had no memory of what I had done during those hours between. The blackouts increased and the terror increased with them. Telephone bills would inform me that I'd made late night calls to distant places. I could tell from the numbers whom I'd called, but what had I said? Some mornings I woke up with a stranger who had brought me home from the party the night before. These things weighed heavily on me, but I couldn't stop the drinking that had caused them. That too gnawed away any remnant of self-respect I might have had. I was incapable of controlling my drinking and my life. I needed a drink to go any place, to the theater, a party, a date, and later to work. I would leave my apartment, lock the door, and start down the stairs, and then turn around and go back in for another drink to get me where I planned to go. I needed a drink to do anything, to write, to cook, to clean the house, to paint the walls, to take a bath. When I passed out and fell into sleep, passed out and fell into bed early, I woke up at 4 or 5 and had Irish coffee to start the day. I discovered that beer was better than orange juice to ease my hangover. Afraid my colleagues or students would smell my breath at work, I was careful to keep my distance. When I got up late and rushed off to the lab, fortified only with coffee, my hand shook so badly it was impossible to weigh out the milligrams of compound needed for an experiment. When I went out to lunch with another alcoholic, we might never get back to work that day. Somehow, I still managed to keep my job, and most of my friends, social drinkers who were urging me to cut down on the alcohol, that counsel only made me mad. But I was concerned myself. I asked the therapist I was seeing, sometimes with beer in hand, would I have to stop? His answer was that we had to find out why I drank. I already tried, but was never able to find out why until I learned the answer in AA. Because I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Ava. Thank you. With my attempt to cut down, I stopped keeping alcohol around the house, drank up whatever was there, over and over, deciding not to get any or not to get more. Then on the way home, after work or an evening out, I'd have to see if I could scrape together enough money for a bottle. There were liquor stores just about every block, and I rotated them so the salesman wouldn't know how much I drank. On Sunday, when the liquor stores were closed, I had to make do with beer or hard cider from the grocery store. The horrors grew inner horrors. On the surface, it looked as though I was more or less keeping it together. But day by day, I was dying inside, filled with fear I couldn't name, but which shook me to the core. My worst fear was that I was an alcoholic. I wasn't sure what that was, except that I might end up down on the Bowery or Bowery in New York, where I had seen drunks curled up on the sidewalks. I made another New Year's resolution to stop drinking entirely until I could handle it. And then I told myself I could not back or I could go back to wine and beer. Hands trembling, body shaky, head splitting, I survived that first day until I was fairly safe in bed in an alcohol-free apartment. Somehow I made it through a couple more days, miserable in withdrawals. In spite of managing to stay dry that time, I have no doubt that resolution would have crumbled like the others, and I would have been drinking again if I hadn't found AA. I had left the therapist who had been able to tell me why I drank, and on New Year's Eve, I went to a party at home, at the home of my apartment, at the home of my new therapist. I'm trying to put in words. You're drinking even more than I realized. You're an alcoholic. I think you should stop drinking, see a doctor, and go to AA. My solution had endured 3 days, and I protested, I'm not an alcoholic. That was my very last denial. Say it the other way, he suggested. I am an alcoholic. It came out in a whisper. But it sounded right. I've said it 1,000 of times since then, and with gratitude. What I was most afraid to admit that evening was what would set me free. The therapist told me then and there to call someone who had been in our therapy group, a doctor or the staff of a hospital alcoholism service. I'll call her tomorrow, I said. Call her now. He handed me the telephone. When I asked her if I was an alcoholic, she said that from what she'd seen of my drinking, I might be. She suggested that I talk with her boss. Terrified, I made an appointment and kept it. She told me the symptoms of alcoholism, and I had them all. She gave me a list of AA meetings and recommended one. I went to that meeting, a small women's group. I was scared and in withdrawal. Someone greeted me, and I muttered my name aloud. Someone brought me a cup of coffee. People gave me their phone numbers. I urged me to call, to pick up the telephone instead of a drink. They were warm and friendly. They said, keep coming back. And I did. For weeks, I sat in the back of the rooms, silent when others shared their experiences, strength, and hope. I listened to the stories and found so many areas where we overlapped. Not all of the deeds, but the feelings of remorse and hopelessness. I learned that alcoholism isn't a sin, it's a disease. that lifted the guilt I had felt. I learned that I didn't have to stop drinking forever, but just not pick up that first drink. One day, 1 hour at a time. I could manage that. There was laughter in those rooms and sometimes tears, but always love. And when I was able to let it in, that love helped me heal. I read everything I could about this disease. I have predicted the way I would die if I continued drinking. I had access to a good medical library, but after a while I realized the genetics and chemistry of the disease were of no use to me as an alcoholic. All that I needed to know about it, what would help me get sober, help me recover, I could learn in AA. I was blessed to live in a city where there were meetings at all hours of the day and night. There I would be safe, and there within a few blocks of my apartment, at last I would find the self I had traveled thousands of miles in search of. The slogans on the walls, with, uh, which at first made me shudder, began to impress me as truths I could live by. One day at a time, easy does it. Keep it simple. Live and let live. Let go and let God. The Serenity Prayer. Commitment and service were part of recovery. I was told that to keep it, we have to give it away. At first, I made the coffee and later volunteered at the intergroup office answering telephones. On the evening shift, I went on 12-step calls, spoke at meetings, served as group officer. Ever so gradually, I began to open, just a crack at first, with my hand on the door, ready to slam it shut in a moment of fear. But my fear subsided too. I found that I could be there, open to all kinds of people, from this solid base that was shared. Then I began to go back out into the world, carrying that strength with me. I found that now I could do anything or do many things without a drink. Write, answer the telephone, eat out, go to parties, make love, get through the day and the evenings, sleep at night, and get up the next morning ready to begin another day. I was amazed and proud to have gone a week without a drink, then a month. Then I lived an entire year sober through my birthday, Christmas, problems, success, the mixture that makes up life. I healed physically, felt good, my senses returned. I began to hear the delicate sound of autumn leaves rattling in the wind, to feel the touch of snowflakes on my face, to see the first new leaves of spring. Then I began to heal emotionally and experience feelings that had long been so deeply buried. They had atrophied. For a time, I floated on the pink cloud. Then I cried for a year, raged for another year. My feelings returned and they began to settle down to reasonable size. Above all, I healed spiritually. The steps took me on that path. I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable. That was what got me through the door. Then I began to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And eventually, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him. Years before, in my search, I had explored numerous religions and dropped them because they preached a something God, which I felt never included me. Alcoholics Anonymous, I was told, is a spiritual program, not a religious one. Through my years of darkness, some spark of spirit remained in me, helped me survive until I found my way into AA. Then, nurtured by the program, that inner spirit grew, deepened until it filled the emptiness I had so long felt inside. Step by step, I moved to a spiritual awakening. Step by step, I cleared up the past and got on with the present. AA is my home now, and it is everywhere. I go to meetings when I travel, here or in foreign countries, and the people in our family I can know because of what we share. As I write this, in my 28th year of sobriety, I am amazed to look back and remember the women, or many. I'm amazed to look back and remember the woman or child I was then, to see how far I've come out of the abyss. Alcoholics Anonymous has enabled me to um, move from fantasies about what I might do with my life into living it. One day at a time. In my first move, that was my that was not a geographic. I left the city and moved to the country. I left research and became a gardener. I discovered that I am a lesbian and that I love women. I'm fulfilled a long time my dream of writing fiction that's being published. But these are things I I do, aspects of the life I'm living in sobriety. The most precious discovery is who I really am. Like all of us, a being far beyond any of the ego slaved, any of the fantasies I'd made up. That sense of being different, which had long plagued me, disappeared when I saw the threads that run through all of us, sharing our stories or feelings. It is the area where we are the same that impressed me. The differences are but delightful flourishes on the surface, like different colored costumes, and I enjoy them. But the basic way we are human, the basic ways we simply are, stand out to me now. I came to see that we all are really one, and I no longer feel alone. Like I keep saying about the pink cloud, I went through the pink cloud part of being angry, being fed up, wanting to give up, arguing with people about everything. And I did all of these things before I even got to this part in the book. Before I even understood what the pink cloud was. And since then, I have learned to have my escape route. When I feel uncomfortable with something or someone, or how someone's treating me, I walk away. Because if I stay and I listen to it and I take it, it's going to stay longer. And that hurts. So I learned early in AA to make those amends. And like she said, alcohol helped. It helped me feel comfortable around people. Being someone I was not. That's the way I spent my whole life, was trying to catch up with other people. And life should never be like that. It's a never-ending battle of, let's try to impress this person. Let's try to change something. I always ran away from things. I was bullied. So I decided when I was growing up that I wasn't going to be an alcoholic, because I already knew that I had alcoholics in my family. But when I had the first drink, it was wine. And that I remember anyways. Because back when I was growing up, it was Jack Daniels on the gums for your toothaches. So there's my thing with Jack Daniels. But anyways, when I was a teenager, I knew I did not want to be an alcoholic. But when I became that alcoholic part of me that I knew I would probably become, I spent many years denying it. No, I'm fine, I don't drink all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then I did go sober. I went through those withdrawals with no help, no assistance. It was just hell. It was hell. I don't care what people think. It was hell. Freaking torture. I had the shakes, I had the cold sweats, I had it all. And I did not know you could have these things from going without alcohol. Okay? I didn't know that. And now I do. Thank you, AA, for saving my life. But it's these stories that we get in these rooms that make us feel a part of something huge. And it's for a good, not a bad. And I highlighted this first spot in this one alcohol helped. At least I thought it helped until I saw the oppressive 30-year shadow encased on my life, or encased on my life. I discovered it in college, and although at first I didn't drink often, didn't have the opportunity whenever I started. I drank as long as there was alcohol around. It was a reflex. It's exactly how I felt. And in Pink Cloud, I cut every single word of alcohol. I cut it off. I was like, I put up a wall over it all because I didn't want to have that urge to go back out. And this is, after I found AA and all of that. But I am very, very grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in the rooms and the amazing friends I have from the rooms. I don't see them all the time. I don't go to meetings very often. But I do these meetings for a reason. Because it helps the next alcoholic who still suffers. Those people that can't get out and go to a meeting. And because during the 2020 time of things, I can't say the words because it's not supposed to be said on here anymore. But yeah, a lot of my friends went back out because they couldn't get away from home and go to a meeting. And I started doing these to be able to help those who can't go to a meeting. Because it is hard for the people that have disabilities who don't have transportation or whatever. Like me, I don't always have a way to go somewhere. But this is how I can help others to stop drinking and my service work. So I have to thank my sponsors and my friends and my family. Y'all are amazing. Sober has been worth it. Very much worth it. I kind of figured you fell asleep. But I think that's going to be the meeting today, guys. I don't know how long I've been on here. 46 minutes. Well, a little more. Unless if anybody has any questions. Oh, I can't wait to get back to fishing. Let's sit on the bank and fish. Got a trip coming up in July. My oldest son is moving out and becoming an adult. Well, he is an adult, but he's becoming a dad and a partner to a beautiful young lady. I am a grandma. I miss my grandkids. I miss them. So, but yeah, I've gotten to Watch my kids graduate. Go through some friends and family passing. My 2 pups passing. But yeah, I've done it all sober. And it's thanks to AA and my friends and family keeping me going. And, Ryder is a blessing in disguise. He has become such a companion to me. He is absolutely glued to my hip unless if I am not home. But anyways, let's say the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys. Be safe out there.